taken from the fourth chapter of the Gospel according to Matthew, verses 12 through 23. Now, when Jesus heard that John was arrested, he went to Galilee. He left Nazareth, and he settled in Capernaum, which lies alongside the sea in the area of Zebulun and Naphtali. This fulfilled what Isaiah the prophet said. Land of Zebulun and land of Naphtali alongside the sea across the Jordan, Galilee of the Gentiles, the people who lived in the dark have seen a great light. And a light has come upon those who lived in the region and in the shadow of death. From that time, Jesus began to announce, "Change your hearts and lives. Here comes the kingdom of heaven." Now, as Jesus walked alongside the Galilee Sea, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, throwing fishing nets into the sea because they were fishermen. "Come follow me," he said, "and I'll show you how to fish for people." Right away they left their nets and followed him. Continuing on, he saw another set of brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with Zebedee, their father, repairing their nets. And Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Jesus traveled throughout Galilee, teaching in their synagogues. He announced the good news of the kingdom and healed every disease and sickness among the people. This is the word of God for all people.
Thanks be to God.
You may be seated. In every journey, there is a make-or-break moment. In every journey, there is a make-or-break moment. It is the ultimate moment of choice. And it is a very tough moment for us. Now, when I was in college, that moment was often when you would wake up in the morning and you would think to yourself, I really just don't feel like going to class today. And then you would begin the mental gymnastics of convincing yourself you in fact did not need to go to class that morning, so you could go back to bed. Usually it went something like this. I took 4 years of German in high school. Why do I need to go to German this morning? We meet twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah, I can sleep in. But in our lives, it's often something different. Right? It's often as we prepare ourselves for something serious, and we try to talk ourselves out of it. I have a really good tendency of this. We'll make grand plans. We're gonna go see our friends. Yeah. Our friends who live in Michigan. Yeah, even better. We're gonna go to Michigan to see our friends. And we're gonna take our toddler with us. Yeah. And while we're there, I think there was the world's largest something on the way, because there's a million of those around here. And so we're going to stop and see the world's largest something, because I can take a selfie in front of it. And then, you know what? Not even that. I heard there's a restaurant that was on Food Network for having the biggest piece of pie with the most whipped cream. And so not only am I stopping to take my selfie, I'm going to eat that pie also. And it becomes this elaborate journey that I prepare to take. And then the day comes to go on the trip, and I say to myself, well, I don't actually have to do all of that stuff. And I back out. Either we make up what we're doing. Oh, something came up. I have a funeral. I have a funeral. Yes. Oh, wait, that's morbid. Wedding. I have a wedding. I haven't been doing counseling. The dog coughed, so I can't go. It's rough. And we go right to our book of excuses, and it gets tough to commit to the journey. And so then we have this story of Jesus calling these 4 disciples, and it doesn't sound realistic to us. Because if you think about it, anytime you take a journey, no matter where you're going, and you think about everything you do before you take the journey, this story doesn't make any sense. Have you ever been standing in your driveway, standing on the sidewalk, standing in the parking lot of the grocery store, waiting at the bus stop, wherever it is you spend a lot of time standing, And somebody comes by and says like, hey, come on. And you're just like, why not? Might as well do this today, see how this goes. No. We like to plan things out. And so we have Andrew and Peter. I put Andrew first. I'm selfish. We got Andrew and Peter, and they're in the boat, and they're fishing. They're doing their job. And Jesus walks by, and he's like, let's hit it. And they do. They drop everything they're doing, and they follow him. And then he goes further, and he sees James and John, and they're with their dad. Right there, and he's like, follow me. And they leave everything, including their father, and just go. And to us, that doesn't make any sense. They don't, as far as we're told, they don't say goodbye to their father. I think they'd have to at least say goodbye. Peace, you know. There needs to be something, right? He'd probably get mad. He's like, you guys up and left. I didn't know where you were going. I couldn't text you. We don't have cell phones. But they just leave. They leave their stuff. They leave their family. And they go. They commit to something. Something new. Something unknown. Something unforeseen, and yet something so powerful they can't help but commit to it. Now some of you might remember this. I want you to dig back. When you heard that the Browns are coming back to Cleveland, how many of you bought season tickets? Okay. But you know that as soon as they said, we're bringing the Browns back to Cleveland, all these people were like, season tickets, I'm in. I commit right now. They didn't know what the team was going to be like. That wasn't supposed to be that funny, but they didn't know, but they committed right then and there. And they said, I'm in. I am in. They didn't know. And that's the same in our scripture today. They don't know. Jesus walks by and he says, let's go. And they say, I'm on board. They commit to this new thing. They don't know a lot about it, but they know God's at work in it. Parallels have ended. I'm not saying God's at work in the Browns, right? That's not what I'm trying to say. God was at work as Jesus was walking down the street. Now, I'm not saying God can't be at work in the Browns, right? But God's not at work in the Browns season ticket sales. That's what I'm trying to say. Important distinction. But Jesus walks down the shore, and he says, come and follow me. And they do. They commit wholeheartedly. And we know they commit because they leave everything. Everything. If Jesus walked by, and I was charging my phone, right? Bring it to modern times. I'm charging my phone. It is not fully charged. And Jesus says, come and follow me. My hesitancy is going to be like, well, but, you see, it's only at like 50%. So if we could wait like a couple hours for that iPhone to get fully charged, like then I could follow you. Right? He's like, just leave the iPhone. And then we'd be like, leave? I'm on a contract. I can't leave the iPhone. This actually happens later in the scripture. People start coming up to Jesus and saying, I want to follow you. And he says, then let's go. And they say, well, first though, I gotta go home and I gotta bury my dad. And Jesus is like, I'm not fooled by you. He's like, your dad's not dead yet. And he's like, you're just trying to say, I want to go home and wait until everything's the way I want it to be, and then I'll follow you. And he's like, that's not how this works. And so he calls them and they leave everything, which means they step out in faith that it's going to be good because they got nothing to fall back on. Someone's going to come. Someone's going to take the net. Someone's going to take the boat. That's not going to just be left lying there. Someone's got to step in and take over the company. So if they go back, they can't say, that's my boat. And they'll get the ultimate retort, which every kid knows. Finders keepers. And so they leave everything that they have and they follow him, which means that they commit. And that's hard. But that's what Jesus asks of us. He asks us to commit for the long haul. He says, leave it all and follow me. Now that's tough for us to do. We have stuff, and we don't want to leave our stuff. Our stuff makes us selfish. It makes it hard to be a disciple because we have all this stuff and it gets in the way. I would love to tell you that if Jesus walked in here right now and said, follow me, I would be like, in. But I would be, if I'm honest, a slight part of myself says, well, yeah, but the Super Bowl's next Sunday. And in my lifetime. And in that moment, I reveal my weakness and my hesitancy to follow fully. Because there's always going to be something that we can use as an excuse that will get in the way. Whether we're getting ready to leave and our dog is coughing, or we wake up in the morning and we say, I don't have to go to class today because I took 4 years of German in high school. Why should I go to German 102 this morning? Or whatever our excuse is, we always can find an excuse. Amen? We will always find an excuse. I love it. I can find excuses like it's my job. I'm married. That is my job, to find excuses. Did you give the dogs a bath yet? Oh. No, I didn't give the dogs a bath yet. I was snow blowing the driveway. In July? Oh, yeah. We can always find an excuse. Always. So will we actually commit? And are we ready to let go of what we have to let go of to follow Jesus more fully? Are we ready to put down the stuff that holds us back? I remember when cell phones came out. Yes, I'm that old young. Okay? I'm young enough that I remember a time before cell phones. Or I'm old enough that I remember a time before cell phones, but I'm young enough that most of my life has been spent with cell phones. I'm old young. And so I remember when it came out, and everybody said, this is big. We are going to be free. No more being tethered to the wall. No more telling people where we're going so they can get a hold of us if they need to. Now they can get a hold of us wherever we are. And yet, I feel as though we are less free now than we were then. Because now we can't get away. Now we can't get away ever. It's with us always. At least most of us. Some of us are really good, but I personally am not really good. I'm not free. I'm not committed because I have things that tether me down. Whether they're wireless or wired, they tether me down. And if I don't commit fully, it's because something is holding me back. And so we might say, well, I can follow Jesus because I have a cell phone, and so I don't have to wait by the phone for that call to come in. And yet, if the battery starts to die, boom, we have found our limitation. There is always something in our lives that will hold us back. I want to follow Jesus, but our buts are all different. That's just a fact. But all of us have a but. How we use it is up to us. What kind of excuses we make is up to us. And how we follow is up to us. We get the choice to commit. The scriptures say that God so loved the world that he sent his only Son. But to follow him is up to us. He can come and walk and teach and preach among us, but to actually follow him is up to us. There were plenty of people in the scriptures that came to hear him, but who could not commit to him. So will you have the ability and the courage to commit to being a disciple? Will you remove the limitations in your life that hold you back from discipleship? Now, when I say that, keep in mind that I also want you to be safe. Right? I'm a diabetic. I'm not going to remove myself from my insulin supply to follow God. Okay? What I mean by that is, I'm going to take my insulin with me. Jesus didn't say, follow me, leave all your medical supplies behind. So know what is a true limitation and know what is a fake limitation. There are those who would tell you leave everything and just be in total faith that God will provide. And I say, yes, but that doesn't mean be stupid. Jesus never said to be dumb. So if you know that you need a medication to live, don't abandon that as if that somehow is a roadblock to you. Know the difference between a roadblock and an excuse. But also know what is essential. And I tell you that because there are people that would say, just everything, just forget it and just follow and it'll be fine. And I say to you, that's not how that works. There are those who would say, if you just trust God enough, everything will be all right. But when they tell you that, what they mean is false. Because they don't want you to really follow God. They want you to give them your money. That's why they look good. And they have television shows. And nice hair. And nice teeth. And they sound fancy. And they reduce following to your pocketbook. And I say to you that that is merely another obstacle and distraction thrown up by the ways of the world and not the ways of God. Because God doesn't care about that stuff. All that God cares about is that you have a heart for God. That you commit fully to the love of God, to sharing the love of God, to living the love of God, and to being the love of God everywhere that you go. To have the courage to unplug and follow and commit. God's got you. But God doesn't want you to be stupid and reckless at the same time. God's got you. But don't make up excuses when the time comes. God's got you, but you got to step out in a little bit of faith. God's got you, but you got to go towards God too. A bridge has two sides. Will you build your side to God? Will you meet God? Will you find God? Will you commit to God? Now, in a little bit, we're going to do something that's the Wesleyan Covenant Service, which is a yearly renewal of commitment to God. And we've already started it in the service. We snuck it in a few places. It was a prayer. It was a litany. But I would challenge you as we go through the service to not just repeat. For too often, when we get engaged in liturgy, it removes us from actual participation because it just becomes this formulaic thing where we're like, the words on the screen say this word, say this word, say this word. So I'm going to say the word and then wait my turn. That's not commitment. Commitment is using all of our senses. It's listening to what we're actually saying, hearing our hearts engage in that conversation. So as you join with me in that service in a little bit, my challenge to you is to know if you can do it honestly it's going to say some tough stuff. And if you're not ready, it's okay. God gives us the ability and gift of discernment for a reason. God challenges us to use our own hearts and minds for a reason. And sometimes that reason is to say, I'm not ready, but I am ready to take another step towards being ready. Because God's got you, no matter where you are on your journey. If this is your first step or your millionth step, God's